a session today with two other panelists I want to tell you a little bit about as well. And it's, as the direct, and first to my left, Bud Gayhart. He's the director of the Center for Innovation and Business Development, the CIBD, at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, where he also oversees the Small Business Development Center and the Wisconsin Innovation Services Center. In his role as the SBDC director, Bud provides consulting to more than 75 business owners annually, resulting in new venture launches and sustaining of existing enterprises. With his experience in economic development, Bud has become a key participant in the ongoing efforts to strengthen regional businesses and the local economy. Perhaps his greatest asset to business owners and community leaders is his firsthand experience having owned and operated his own businesses. A retail business for more than 20 years and a machine controls manufacturing company with an international client base for 5 years. As the WISC director, Bud provides oversight for research projects, acting as a resource for proposal development and a leader for innovation within the center. In addition to these roles, Bud teaches the Small Business Consulting course at UW-Whitewater. And Michael Enyart, who, as Michael mentioned, is flying in this afternoon and hopefully will be showing up at any moment, otherwise I'll cover for him, is our director of the Business Library at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Has been there since 1989 and has over 20 years of experience in technology and business reference in the public and private library space. He has provided competitive intelligence to Kimberly-Clark, Carey Group, Wausau Financial Services, and Leedy Research. He also developed an online MBA course for conducting company research. So, great group of speakers today, and we're going to talk about early stage market research. And if you think about a startup, and you really have one very clear goal that drives a lot of why you want to do market research. And a goal of any startup is to really answer the questions regarding your market, your technology, and your economic model before you run out of money, is the simplest way to think about what you need to do in a startup. And the marketing, is there someone who will buy your product? The technology, can you actually make and have it perform the way you are promising? And the economic model, will you actually be able to make money doing all of those things? Fairly simple, but at the same time, this is where a lot of companies run into failure. And a lot of startups, if you look at what causes market failure or startup failure, the number one answer, both described by entrepreneurs and venture capitalists who invest in these companies, is poor management, strategy, and skills. And how that manifests itself by a lack of customers, or a market that's too small, or a technology that doesn't work. Interestingly enough, that third point, the technology that doesn't work, is actually the rarer of the other two. It's more often that you either don't get customers that are interested in the product, or those that are interested just aren't enough of them for the startup to be successful. So this is what you want to do is proper market research will help you get further along and not spend a lot of money and avoid making mistakes on those two and answer the questions for those two. And do it before you try to scale up and perhaps run into problems from that. So your real goal in early stage market research is to understand your customer and really understand the customer. What are their needs? What are their problems that you're solving for them? And what does that customer look like? How can you find more of those customers? You also want to understand who really makes the buying decision. You often have an end user who's going to use the product, but may not be the person who's buying the product. Sometimes that goes through different channels. In consumer goods, you often have the issue of you have to sell to an end user, but you also need to sell to the buyer at the retail store or the channel has to be excited about that product. If you look at a lot of healthcare medical products, you have multiple people that probably have a say in that product's success, ranging from the actual patient who may use it, the doctor, the hospital, the insurance company. All of those are people that have a say in the success of that product, and that product being successfully and purchased and being a success. So all of those parts of the channel do come into play. You also have the ability and the opportunity in this early stage to start to tailor the product and alter it to fit what you're hearing from the customer, as well as the marketing message and what you're saying, and if it's resonating with the potential customers that are out there. And lastly, the market size. Once you've solved those earlier issues and found out who really is going to be a good fit for your product, is it big enough and an interesting enough segment for you to make money at it? And this is where early stage market research comes into play. There are a few different types of market research. The two that you will often hear the most about are primary and secondary. Primary research is where you are actually developing the information yourself, you're creating that knowledge and that data. We're breaking it down in a couple of ways here. One, are you creating it yourself as the entrepreneur, as the company, or are you outsourcing it to a market research group to help you answer those questions? And that's what Bud's group is so good at. You also then have secondary market research. This is where you are getting data from public or market research private databases, and other people have created that information, often market size, market share, lots of different info that you are buying from them. Maybe it's even published for free sometimes, but that is something you're not defining the questions. You're typically buying or accessing market research that's been done elsewhere. And that's what our business library is so good at. So each of us will be talking about little different aspects of this. I'm going to talk about the in-house aspect of early stage market research. And what that entails is having the entrepreneur or the early employees actually doing the work. And this is either on the phone or in person. And it's usually recommended that you almost want to have the entrepreneur or someone very, very involved in the company do some of this early stage work, because there is so much uncertainty, and even asking the right questions is not that easy to develop, and you'll learn a lot by testing those questions. So you want to have the entrepreneur do some of the earlier work, even if you're going to outsource it later on, to maybe even test a few of the questions and get some of that feedback. You're looking to get feedback on, is this of interest, and ask the right follow-on questions and really understand what works or doesn't work with these potential customers. You want to go there with your message of what are you offering, what is your product, what is your solution, and it should be really clear and unbiased. This isn't a sales call. You're really trying to find reality instead. So you want to be honest, be forthright on what are the shortfalls, what is the cost going to be for your product, so that this potential customer can really understand what you're offering. You also want to understand what is the customer interest and how much passion do they feel for your solution. There are a couple of good stories of when Google went out, and this was actually to a venture capitalist, that they had a demo of what their product could do, what their search could do relative to the existing search engines that were out there. And on the spot, the venture capitalist actually wrote a check for, I believe it was $100,000. Now, they didn't even have a company yet. So they took that check and put it in a drawer for a few weeks before, as they tried to think, did they really want to start a company? And they actually had to go through the, what we're going to call it, and other aspects of filing the legal terms of incorporation. So that showed definitely a pretty high level of passion. I know of a group that's inventing a flying car, and this is, or you could say it's a drivable plane, depending on how you want to define it, out of actually a group out of MIT. And what they did is at the EAA show up in Oshkosh, have their booth there with a chance for people to actually pre-order and put money down in escrow for this product when it comes to market. Definitely shows the fact that you're getting people to put money down for a product like that goes a long way in the level of passion and interest that at least one segment of the customer market has for that product. You want to you want this to be a learning experience. That's the purpose of this market research, is find out where your idea or your product has the strongest fit. It probably isn't going to be a fit for everybody. Probably most of us in this room aren't really good fits for the flying plane. But there may be a few people that it would really resonate, and probably they are at the EAA show as well. So you start to get an idea of who are the customers, who is the person that's really going to be interested in this product to buy this product. You then can use that information to both tweak your product design as well as your marketing message, and use your marketing to overcome the roadblocks or the issues that you're hearing from potential customers when they say, well, I'm not interested, and here's why. Is that something you can address either through design or by better communication of what you have to offer? The important thing here too is you can't rely on Google. This isn't something that just sitting in kind of in an office with internet connectivity is going to get you to the right answer. You want to really be out and about talking to the potential customer, either over the phone or in person, to get that sort of feedback, that intimate knowledge of what they need and how you're going to help them solve their problem. Great example of this is if you've ever read about the founding of Intuit with the famous Quicken software, Scott Cook, who founded that back in 1982. Got the idea because his wife was complaining about the just the painfulness of kind of writing checks on the kitchen table and everything, and then reconciling the checkbook and all of the things that go into that. So he said, "Hey, this seems to be a problem. I figured out there's a problem here." He then wanted to see if his wife was the only one with this problem, if there were others out there. And he bought 2 telephone books, one for Winnetka, Illinois, and one for Palo Alto, California. Reason for that was in 1982, there probably weren't a lot, the average person didn't have a PC. But he figured those markets were the highest probability of people owning a PC. So he randomly started to call people in those markets. And would ask them, you have a PC, and then is this a product you'd be interested in? What he found was actually there was strong interest, and a pretty significant number of customers had actually already purchased a product to do their accounting. But they hated it, and they weren't using it. And when probing on, well, why is that? It was usually too complex, and in fact, found out that there were lots of competitors out there he said there were 46 competitors, but they were mostly written by accountants, and they were assuming it would be used by an accountant. His realization was that probably isn't the right idea. So after doing his own over the phone in the kitchen, calling people, hired a small market research group to go out and kind of ask the further questions to see what he had found with his small sample played out in a broader group. And the real key insight for him was that in developing a personal finance package, what he learned is that you needed to write it for an end user, not for an accountant. Most of the other ones approached it from a general ledger accounting perspective. He approached it from a checkbook perspective, because that's the customer he was going after. He often said his biggest fear was that one of the 46 other competitors would call up 10 end users and immediately learn what the right thing to do was. But that didn't happen, or didn't happen fast enough, and they've gone on to be an incredibly successful product and really a huge innovator in user-friendly personal finance and user-friendly software. So, a simple example of an entrepreneur who started to go out and really address the end user and get feedback from that end user to define their product and their target segments. We also have, as I wanted to mention, that's for the entrepreneur to do, and Bud's going to talk about a great program they have over at Whitewater to help entrepreneurs do some market research or outsourcing. We also have a couple that are linked to, which are different, that are linked to the semester here at the UW. We do some projects in our entrepreneurship courses, and if you're interested, you can go to our website or contact me regarding projects we do with local companies during an academic year. And we also have projects at the Nielsen Center for Market Research, where you can hire a consultant to work for a semester as well in market research. In fact, we have Kristen Branch in the audience there, so put your hand up. So if you stick around afterwards and have any questions about that, definitely look her up. But I'd like to turn it over to Bud.